What's up, everybody? Welcome back to the channel. Okay, so you guys know, or at least I think you know, I haven't really spoken upon this very much, that I generally cover news because of the manipulations, not necessarily because of the story itself, and that's what we've got today. The story is not all that fascinating, if you will, but the media loves to manipulate everything, and this could turn into something much bigger. As a matter of fact, check this out, y'all. Trump administration sues Colorado and Denver for allegedly interfering in immigration enforcement. This is fascinating, y'all. No, the Trump administration is not suing Colorado and Denver for allegedly interfering in immigration enforcement. They are suing Colorado and Denver for interfering in immigration enforcement. That's an allegation. They're not suing them for allegedly doing something. They're suing them because they've done it. And that is an allegation. I know that may seem semantic, but it's really not. What they are trying to do with this is by throwing the alleged in before the actual allegation is to poison the well. To make you think that they're not really doing this, y'all. Once again, folks, the media manipulation is pervasive, y'all. Check this out. The Department of Justice sued Colorado and Denver on Friday for allegedly interfering with federal efforts to enforce immigration laws, the latest attempt by the Trump administration to crack down on what some call sanctuary cities and policies. Now, it's not what some call. I think if, you codify the word sanctuary into your law, that's not what some call. That's actual legal terminology, legally defined into their laws. That is what it is. It's not what some call it. It's fascinating how they try to, just some people say it's sanctuary policies. No, that's what they are calling them. So that's what they are. Fascinating, huh? The lawsuit claims the state and its most populous city, Denver, have passed sanctuary laws violating the Supremacy Clause of the U.S. Constitution. The United States has well-established preeminent and preemptive authority to regulate immigration matters, according to the lawsuit, which was filed in federal courts in Denver. Now, what's fascinating about all this is they do not go over the actual laws that would violate the Supremacy Clause, right? And to violate the Supremacy Clause, which, as they said, the federal government has preeminent dominance, essentially, over immigration policy in this country. Now, what these sanctuary laws tend to do is just tell law enforcement, it makes it a violation of law for law enforcement to help the federal government, which is odd. It's very strange because that also works in both directions. As a matter of fact, famously or infamously, as we covered on this channel, Texas created a law. As a matter of fact, Florida has done this well, and a judge has ruled against Florida in this for making laws that would allow local law enforcement, state troopers, sheriffs, all of that, even city police, to arrest and detain people and turn them over to ICE if they're in the country illegally, right? And the Biden administration infamously sued Texas over this law to stop the law from being implemented. That's insane, if you ask me. It really is, because this would give local law enforcement in Texas, which is a hotbed of illegal immigrants, right? This would give them the ability. This would give the federal government the ability to do their job a whole hell of a lot better and a lot more efficient, right? Because now you have the entirety of Texas law enforcement able to give you a hand. And the federal government, using the Supremacy Clause, sued Texas to stop them from implementing this. This is insane. And now they are trying to use this. Once again, folks, I don't know the exact particulars of the Colorado laws, but most sanctuary city laws, they don't really go into supremacy territory, if you will, the Supremacy Clause territory, because they just stop local law enforcement from helping, from assisting federal agencies. So I'd have to look into that. As a matter of fact, I'm going to pause the video and do that right quick. Okay, so I looked into it, And as a matter of fact, we'll go over that here in a little bit. Let's keep going with our news article right quick and get that out of the way right fast. Check this out. Let's keep going. There is no strict definition for sanctuary policies or sanctuary cities, but the terms generally describe limited local cooperation with Immigration and Customs Enforcement, or ICE, enforces U.S. immigration laws nationwide, but seeks state and local help, particularly for large-scale deportations, and requests that police and sheriffs alert ICE to people it wants to deport and hold them until federal officers can take custody. Justice Department attorneys argue Colorado's sanctuary policies allow the Venezuelan gang Tren de Aragua to seize control of an apartment complex in the Denver suburb of Aurora. Local officials have called Trump's claims that the gang had taken over large swaths of the city exaggerated, but acknowledged the apartment complex was terrorized, including by people linked to Tren de Aragua. That is fascinating because what they're trying to do here, once again, is poison the well. Donald Trump said, they've taken over apartment complex. This is true. The corporate press tried to deny it. Then they tried to downplay it by saying, it's only one apartment complex. One is too many. I'm sorry. These people are insane. They really are. And they're trying to downplay this whole situation because they don't want criminal aliens to get a bad rap. They really don't. They want these people here. It's part of their power process. It's how they get electoral power, folks. It really is. Because these people get counted on the census. Okay, and the census is where all electoral college vote numbers come from. As a matter of fact, the census delegates that power to whatever state based upon population. And when you count people that are non-citizens, they count criminal aliens as part of the population. That waters down that electoral process because these people cannot vote, but yet they're getting power through other voters, in other words, right? Because these people now have 2 or 3 people for one person's vote, essentially. It's how that kind of plays out, whatever the number may be. Of course, it's not that much. It's not 2 or 3, right? For every person, it would be like another 0.1 or 0.2 votes. So people are getting 1.1 votes, essentially, is what that all boils down to, in places where you have a lot of criminal aliens that get counted on the census. This is why it's a bad thing, because it gives certain states more power than they should have, like California, for instance, who has a very, very large and diverse criminal alien population. Right? The estimates for that is like anywhere from 3 to 7 electoral college votes, right? Which that's not a whole hell of a lot, but it's still a little bit, and it still gives an unfair advantage. You see what I'm trying to get at here, right? It gives an unfair advantage to the state. And this is why Democrats love their illegal immigration, and this is why they are fighting tooth and nail to stop all these deportations. Because it's Donald Trump's authoritarian takeover. This is how they see it, folks. This is why they call him a fascist. Because he's taken their power away. Well, if all things were created equal, they wouldn't have that power in the first place. This is why people like Elon Musk are getting out there and saying that Democrats are trying to import power, essentially by importing people into this country so they can derive power from those people. It's insane. Friday's lawsuit lists as defendants Democratic Governor Jared Polis, the state legislature Denver Mayor Mike Johnston, and Colorado Attorney General Phil Weiser. Polis spokesperson Connor Cahill said in an email that Colorado is not a sanctuary state and regularly works with local, state, and federal law enforcement agencies. He can say that, doesn't mean it's true. If the courts say that any Colorado law is not valid, then we will follow the ruling. He said, "We are not going to comment on the merits of the lawsuit." Republicans in Congress have pressured officials in Democratic-led cities to cooperate with the Trump administration's immigration agenda. Lawmakers summoned the mayors of Denver, Boston, New York, Chicago to testify last month before the House Committee on Oversight and Government Reform. The mayors pushed back, defending their communities as welcoming places, not lawless danger zones, and called on Congress to pass immigration reform. Yeah, but you know what? They didn't mention anything at all in there about the pushback, about the spike in crime in these cities. The spike in alien criminality, for goodness sakes. This is manipulation at its best, because they're only giving you one side of the equation here. Sure, they tell you why Trump is suing these people, but they don't tell you the underlying reasons why Trump is suing, what the actual laws are. And then they give you one side of the story versus giving you the whole story. Once again, folks, this is Media Manipulation 101 at its best. But let's go over what I looked over. I read over all this, and this is what I think the Trump administration may be on about as to what is violating the Supremacy Clause. Check this out. This is specifically from Denver. It says Executive Order number 142. Issued by former Mayor Michael Hancock, this order declares Denver a safe and welcoming city for all residents. It mandates training for all city employees on limitations regarding the collection and sharing of national origin, immigration, or citizenship data with federal immigration enforcement officials, including details about appointment times or whereabouts of clients. It requires city leaders to report any known efforts by federal immigration agents to seek city assistance in enforcing immigration laws. Now, what I think that is doing, that is harboring and abetting criminal aliens. That is exactly what that does, and that violates U.S. Code, I think 18C, I forget the section, I'm sorry, like 342, I believe, but don't quote me on that. But, this is essentially the whole city of Denver aiding and abetting criminal aliens by not asking for their citizenship status, allowing them to pretend that they're citizens, and then keeping that information from federal law enforcement, right? Federal immigration enforcement. They're aiding and abetting criminal aliens in this country, and that is a violation of laws in this country. Now, you could tell your police to not help with any investigation, blah, blah, blah. That you can do that if you so choose to, but, once again, that is kind of undermining public safety, if you ask me. But I think that's pretty much the gist of it. They're harboring criminal aliens. They can sit there and say they're not sanctuary cities all they want. But when you have policies such as, we're not going to ask their citizenship data so we don't lie to federal authorities, yet now you're harboring criminal aliens. You're intentionally keeping that information from becoming public, if you will. It's not an egregious violation, but it does violate the law. And I think the Trump administration is doing a good job by trying to root out these sanctuary cities, forcing them to at least acknowledge the criminal aliens that are in their cities, and at least telling them that, yes, we have these people there in the city. You don't have to help them go get them, for crying out loud, but if you're going to hide these people, essentially, which is what that is doing, yeah, you're violating the law, and I think Trump has every right to go at least bring them to court, at least, and see what a judge says. There you go. But I think that's all I got on this one. I want to thank everybody for watching, and y'all try to have a good day. Stay legitical. Peace.